All right, guys, this is a Friday flashback, and I've been asked many times about what it was like in my first experience as a professional bodybuilder. And we got to go way back because I earned my pro status at the 1987 NPC National Championships. That was in October in Atlantic City. That was, for me, the highlight of my career. I didn't know whether I had the stuff to be a professional bodybuilder, and it just kind of fell in sync with my teenage national championship, my Mr. California title, and of course winning my very first national title attempt. And that gave me that very elusive IFBB pro card that everyone and their mother wanted. I mean, at the time, I think they were only turning pro like 5 guys a year during that time. And I was the 5th national champion in 1987, following Lee Haney and Bob Paris and Mike Christian and Phil Williams and Gary Stridham. And then it was me. And I joined some very elite company, and now it was time for me to find out what it was like to actually compete for prize money. And I got that opportunity, which seemed to come very fast. I mean, I turned pro in October of '87, and my pro debut was going to be May of 1988. So I had a very short off season to kind of get acclimated into what it felt like to get paid to be a pro bodybuilder. I did lots of photo shoots that year with some very famous photographers like Chris Lund and Robert Reef and Bill Dobbins, Paula Crane, Jim Mentler. I mean, some really cool people coming up in 1987. And then here comes Christmas and New Year's. Bam, I got 5 months to be ready. However, I signed up for some guest posings. I mean, that came with being a national champion. And so back then you had to wait for the mail to come in the mailbox. And I'd open the letter and it'd be from these different places. And I say, yes. I mean, I always envisioned myself traveling and performing. And so I couldn't say no to anybody. And before I knew it, I was like a month away from the New York Night of Champions. Now, this is a big show because I remember Gary Stridham and Mike Ashley had the show down there, and Robbie Robinson had won it, Albert Beckles had won it. This was a huge show. The Night of Champions at the time was like the #2 show on the planet behind the Olympia. And I'm jumping in this bad boy, and on paper, I've got this rubber match with Phil Hill. Phil Hill won the heavyweight division in 1987, and it was, for me, it was a miracle that I beat a guy that big. I'd never seen anybody on stage that big. I was friends with Victor Richards, who was with me at the national championships, and he was the biggest person besides the Barbarian brothers on the planet. And here I was on stage against Phil Hill, and I beat him more on completeness than anything else. But we were having this rubber match here in May, and all he was doing was eat, sleeping, and training, and looking for the vengeance, for the title. And I was Hollywood, man. I was like Rocky in Rocky IV. I was, doing things and going places I'd never been, and just kind of was on autopilot, training for what was supposed to be my pro debut and my biggest moment. And it didn't happen. I didn't come in with enough hunger. I didn't come in with enough motivation and time and preparation, because I was just too busy doing the business of bodybuilding. And I lost to one of my idols, Bob Paris, who was 3rd. And I lost to Albert Beckles, who only 3 years prior was 2nd in the Mr. Olympia. And then, of course, Phil Hill won the competition. And I believe Robbie Robinson was 2nd, and Phil Hill won the show. And when all was said and done, and this was the first time I was in New York, I felt pretty defeated. And 4th place in your pro debuts is an accomplishment for many. It qualified me for the Mr. Olympia. But I had to go home with this $2,000 check and realize I had blown an opportunity. And I had to reevaluate, like, what am I doing? Like, it's hard to say no to appearance money when that's all you ever wanted as a pro. But it's also hard and a bitter pill to swallow defeat when all you're used to was winning. So now I have this Mr. Olympia qualification, and I have to take it because it's in Los Angeles in September. And all the while, I'm looking at my travel schedule, which is booked all the way through August. And not a bad place to be. It was affording me certain things in life that I had never been accustomed to. Living on my own and having my own vehicle and not asking mom and dad to help for food or rent or any of that stuff. I was my own person handling my career as an adult. But the date with the 1988 Olympia was bearing down on me, and I just got my ass handed to me in New York, and all these appearances are still on the table. It's a quagmire, because I want to cancel all of these appearances just so I can focus on that Olympia, but it's impossible. I signed my name to a contract. I committed myself to be the best I could be, and Universal Studios out here in Los Angeles. And hell, Lee Haney was in the show, Gaspari, Labrada. I mean, Phil Hill. I wanted revenge. I wanted to go in there and do what I could. But while the mind was willing, the body was shot. I was burnt out. I was overworked. I was way over traveled, and I was in so far over my head. I couldn't complain. Who am I going to complain to? I'm too busy making money to train for the Olympia. I mean, those words never came out of my mouth. So I just did what I could do. And knowing that my body wasn't reacting, I kind of conditioned myself that, you know what? I've got to go and learn as much as I can. And I had the best seat in the house. And I took it in stride, knowing this is not a contest I'm coming to win. This is a contest I'm coming to learn from. So I took that defeat in New York in May of '88 and really crystallized what I had to do at that Olympia. And I had to be present. I knew I wasn't going to be a competitor, but on paper in the magazines, I was supposed to be a top 5 guy. I was supposed to be making a comeback and look like I did in '87. And I knew that was virtually impossible with the time on the clock. The sand was running out. And so I became a student. I became a fan all over again. I took it all in. This was going to be on my birthday, September 9th and 10th in Universal. And as fate would have it, my grandmother would die that night on my birthday, September the 9th, that I was celebrating. And I had to go on the stage and do this bodybuilding show. I was at the press conference. We had the robes. We were weighing in like a heavyweight championship fight. So we got a preview of what our competitors look like. This was the year that Barry DeMay came in at his absolute best. This is a year where Gary Stridham was supposed to unseat Lee Haney because they did a photo shoot and he looked the same height and same weight. And of course, you know, Gaspari was going for another first Olympia runner-up placement, and Labrada was everything that Labrada was supposed to be. So I was in way over my head, but I was looking forward to competing against Samir Banu and Ron Love and gosh, who else was in there? Rolf Mueller, and I wanted that rematch with Phil Hill and Albert and Robbie. I mean, I couldn't stay at home and watch the Olympia because I wasn't dialed in. So I went. It was bittersweet, but I had all my faculties right. I knew this is a learning experience for me. And when the dust settled, I was 13th or 14th place, right behind Samir Banu, I believe it was. And I looked at some of the guys that were behind me, and it was Robbie Robinson and some pretty big names were behind me. And I thought, wow, not even at my best, I was able to beat some of these legends. What happens if I have time to prepare? And of course I would do that. And as history would have it, the next 12 years I would spend in the top 5 of the Mr. Olympia because I prepared. Mentally and physically, I learned how to say no to appearances. I learned how to block out the distractions and focus on trying to become Mr. Olympia. And I'd vacillate between 2nd and 5th for a decade, actually for 12 years before I retired. But the main lesson I learned in that rookie debut of my show was, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do what you did that got you there. And mind you, when I turned pro, I was a student in college and all I did was eat, sleep, and train, and I just wanted that pro card so bad. So when you commit yourself to something and you don't have a plan B, things happen. And when you lose, you have one way, you have a choice. You go up or you go down. And for me, that losing experience in 1988 set me in the right trajectory to wind up in the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. So while those memories are bittersweet, the lessons that were learned helped propel me into the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame and provide some very good memories and rematches and vengeance on some of the guys that beat me in my rookie year. But that rookie year is what set me on the course to a Hall of Fame bodybuilding career. So for that, those Friday flashbacks, I'm forever grateful.